All right, we're gonna go ahead and start. I'd like to welcome and say to everyone tonight and say thank you for coming. This is the third installment of our sustainability or our alumni and sustainability series. We have some alumni tonight that work in energy with us here. And we're really excited to kind of get to know them and talk with them, see what they've been doing since they've been here at Morris. And me and my co-host will introduce ourselves to start off. My name is Gabby Gingras. I am a senior at University of Minnesota Morris, majoring in environmental studies and minoring in political science and creative writing. Um, I'm really excited and I can't wait to hear from everyone. So I will turn it over to you, Griffin.
Thanks, Gabby. My name is Griffin Peck. I'm a senior in the environmental studies major. I'm also getting a minor in sustainability, leadership, and stewardship. I've worked here in the Office of Sustainability for almost 2 years, maybe kind of year and a half-ish. I was a transfer student to Morris, so I've only been here for 2 years, but graduating, so that's cool. And I am sort of a future energy alumni because I recently got offered a position to be the sustainability project coordinator for the city of Morris. So that's exciting. I get to spend a couple more years here, which never thought I would actually want to say, but it grows on you, I guess. I think I'll turn it over to our presenters. I think we'll have Yusef go first. If you just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yusef, Orest. I graduated, 2006 with a degree in economics. And yeah, I also grew up in Morris and now live in Grand Marais, Minnesota. And I'm working in the power sector, doing a number of different things, which I suppose I'll get into later. Thank you. Excited to be here.
I think Maria will have you go next.
Sorry, there we go. Can you hear me? I'm Maria Gingras. I graduated in 2008, also with a degree in economics. I currently live near Burlington, Vermont, and I work for Southwest Power Pool, fully remote, but frequently going to Little Rock, Arkansas, where that's headquartered, and I will also get into that later. I live with my husband and 3-month-old daughter, so my newest resume item, I guess, is mom. So figure out how to get her indoctrinated in sustainability early.
All right, and then we will finish off with Jordan.
Hello, my name is Jordan Wente. I graduated from Morris in 2015 with degrees in economics, statistics, and Spanish. Spent a little bit of time abroad in grad school in Denmark, and then moved back to Minnesota, where I started a job at the Office of Enterprise Sustainability at the state of Minnesota. And that was more kind of directly in the sustainability field, looking at state operations. Since then, like for the last 2 years or so, I've been more directly in the power sector, working at Dakota Electric Association, which is the one publicly regulated electric cooperative here in Minnesota, the second largest co-op in Minnesota as well. So now squarely in the power sector. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So I guess we can just go in that order again. To start off, if you want to go a little bit more in depth with, or actually, let's look at a better look at our questions here. Let's actually first talk about your experiences at Morris. What was it like coming here and then graduating and going into the professional world? did you have any like experiences at Morris that like you can directly track, like had an impact on your life or anything like that?
I guess I'm going first. And yeah, I can definitely say that Morris has impacted my life. I actually grew up in Morris. My mom was a professor on campus, teaching dance and working in the office, in the library as well. So, Morris has always been kind of part of my life, especially on campus. But I would say that, even though I had kind of a upbringing on campus, the real advantage that I had was, when I got into courses, as a student, I really could just find, the resources, whether it was a professor or somebody else on campus, to really help me dig in and understand something. And, I've talked to folks who've gone to other schools and they just didn't have that same experience. So I think that that was a real springboard for me, is just that opportunity to really like dig in, get embedded in something to participate at a high level. I did an internship out at West Central Research and Outreach Center when they were grinding up biomass samples for the biomass boiler there on campus. I think I ground up all of those. I just had this opportunity for enrichment that was just really deep, and I'm super grateful for that. And springboarding from that experience into a professional career, folks at Morris supported me and actually I left school early to accept a job because the market was so hot and so urgent. It was only a few weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks, but I just had this supporting environment at Morris that really sprungboarded me and made me confident, made me feel like I could figure out whatever I needed to do by just enriching myself and asking questions and being honest with people. And it's like, I don't get that. Can you help me? Can you help me learn it? And that was just an experience at Morris that I'm really grateful for.
I guess I'm next. I had very similar things to say as Yusef, because I was a undergraduate research assistant, partly for economic development, which sent me to India, which helped me land my first job with the Department of Energy, actually working on the India and Pakistan desk, doing clean energy diplomacy. And then I also had a second one with Arna, and really not with Arna because he went on sabbatical, but Lowell Rasmussen, the then director of facilities and finance, kind of ended up being my de facto advisor. And we worked on the biomass facility. And eventually I came back after doing a master's program and worked with Lowell and Troy again, and actually looked at how to best serve Morris, the campus, to get closer to fully off the grid, fully on renewable energy. And one of the results, eventually it morphed into what is the solar array that sits next to the newest, fanciest dorm. So that gave me a lot of experience that was seen as attractive by both the Department of Energy, and even now to this day, I keep some of those projects and that experience on my resume, and it definitely still gives me a kind of a unique edge, because it's not just plain old professional experience, but some entrepreneurial experience in renewable energy and energy.
Yeah, so I could speak at length about the different ways that Morris kind of really empowered me to get into the position that I am in now, and the different all these different stages, I guess, or career paths. I'm kind of like, for one, I'm a little honored to just be in a panel with Yusef and Maria, because when I was in school, 2011 through 2015, these were the kind of champions and heroes that I looked up to here on this panel. Just exactly speaking to what Yusef was commenting on, I've definitely called up Yusef with questions about different energy issues and different nuances, in the co-op world or the investor and utility world. So yeah, it was great. When I came to Morris, I wasn't exactly sure that I would be, going into energy per se. I think I had aspirations in international development or like, just kind of broad global economic development type stuff. But just like getting involved in Morris and like Center for Small Towns and with Arna as well, Arna Kildegaard. I had a couple applied projects that really kind of drew my interest to apply both economics and statistics to energy problems. So there was like one project on integration of solar and dairy operations that was really interesting. And that got me first going and looking at, time series analysis of solar production, how that pairs with dairy load, and how there could be kind of a synergy and what are the economic benefits, I suppose, of integrating solar on site on dairies. So that was like a first really kind of fun project working with energy data. And just kind of got like a lot of interest, really stimulated a lot of appetite to further explore using stats and then trying to focus into energy problems and load side problems. But yeah, Morris in general, like if you had an idea, if you, had ambition to pursue something, my professors, just the community was really supportive time and time again. So yeah, I could go on for a long time, but yeah.
Thank you. I know we've touched on it a little bit here tonight, but if we could all kind of talk on how your experiences post-graduating Morris and kind of once you entered the career field, kind of what you did and how you got to where you are today. And we'll stick with the same where we've been going with. So Yusef, you can get us started.
I'm actually just going to tack on one more thing and just a request from Troy. In answering what Gabby just asked, can you also just add what your major was and then any clubs that you might have also participated in? We tried to ask it at the beginning, but then we kind of got carried away a little bit. So just add that in like right here.
Sure, I'll add that at the front. And how much time do I have? Because I have done a lot of interesting things in my career. So goodness gracious. Yeah, I graduated with a degree in economics in 2006. I was in all sorts of stuff. I can't even remember anymore. I worked at the student center at the information desk quite a bit, and I worked at Turtle Mountain Cafe. I did an internship at West Rock, and who knows what else I was involved in, but those are the things that stick out for me. I mean, if it wasn't for Turtle Mountain Cafe, I don't know how I would have made it through college. And the information center. I mean, I worked during the summers in there, and I tell you what, it was pretty lonely. There were some long days where nobody else was around. But, gummy bears, that was a perk. I don't know if they even do that anymore. Back when I was there was a whole wall of candy. When I left Morris, I actually went to work for a consulting agency called WindLogix, and they were doing wind resource consulting models for organizations all across the world. So I got it was a real treat. I got to work with companies from all over the world, from like Poland to Brazil, all over North America. I did some really cool and interesting projects. I was really kind of like a project coordinator, client success manager kind of thing. That sort of led me to actually going and doing some direct development work for renewable energy assets. So I worked for a Minnesota-based company. They were doing projects all over the country, but they were called Jewel Energy. Dan Jewel is kind of an old stalwart of the community-based energy development days in Minnesota. And I went and worked for Dan for, I think, about 4 years till the market kind of went through a dip and there just weren't projects to be had for a small organization like that. But we built some really interesting projects. We did like a behind the meter, couple of wind turbines at a manufacturing facility in Ohio. We did a project for a hospital in Wisconsin. We just did stuff all over Minnesota. So that was really fun. But when the market kind of dried up, I had to go searching for something else to do because we just weren't able to get projects moving forward. So I actually started my own business. I did automotive type of things and actually specialized in like hybrid cars. This is this had to be like 2010 or so. So, hybrids were still pretty cool back then. Everything's electric now, but back then hybrids were all the rage. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I actually lucked into a job in Benson, which is just south of Morris, working for a local distribution utility called AgriLight Electric Cooperative, and they serve just to the south edge of Morris, actually. And I have to admit, like Jordan mentioned this, and thanks for the shout out, Jordan, but co-ops are really cool. I really enjoyed working in rural electric cooperatives. I worked at two. So I worked at AgriLight Electric Cooperative for a while, and one of my main priorities there was essentially what's called demand response or dispatching load at the distribution level. So, when there's a peak event on the grid, you turn off people's water heaters, or you turn off heaters and things like that, or you turn on generators. And that's at the grid edge kind of equipment. So that was a role that I fulfilled there. Because of that experience, I was able to move up to where we live now in Grand Marais. The local utility here is called Arrowhead Electric Cooperative, and they had a department that had been vacant for a while, and their demand management system was broken. And so I used my experience to come up here and kind of get it set back up and doing what it needs to do, and it's been pretty successful. From there, I actually did electric vehicle development and program management for Minnesota Power, which is the state's second largest investor-owned utility. That was really kind of sprung out of while I was here at Arrowhead. I put in some fast chargers as part of just an initiative. And so I went to Minnesota Power for 2 years and did that. And now I'm working as a project manager back in the demand response space, really what we call grid optimization or demand and energy response management systems. There's a lot of acronyms there, sorry, but that's where we really are working on grid optimizations at the grid edge or in microgrids. So yeah, was that 5 minutes? That was probably for too long. Sorry, did a lot of things.
All right, so let's see. When I graduated Morris, I went straight to do a master's program in development economics at the London School of Economics. And we went into the worst financial recession since the Great Depression. And so my big plans were completely uprooted because schools stopped giving out fellowships, and people were setting banks on fire, and it was some crazy time. So I took a job with Target because it was the only person who would hire me at the time. And I felt very lucky to, and got some analytics experience, but I hated every minute of it. So I decided, how can I stay sane? So I talked to Lowell, talked to Troy, and I started designing. I started modeling the energy system at UMN, got some experience, and started going to town and talking to other towns about doing the same thing. And eventually got hired by Eutectics to be just a helper, like kind of run financial analysis for their projects. I believe they're still in business today. But fortunately, the recession didn't last forever, and I was able to go back to school. So I went to UC Davis, and I did my doctorate technically in the ecology program, but I did environmental science and policy, and I looked at kind of like how wholesale electric markets and state and city policies kind of work together to affect climate change and whatnot. And while I was there, I took a fellowship at the Department of Energy and the International Affairs, doing the India and Pakistan desk, primarily because of my experience at Morris and then at LSE. And then I turned that into a full-time position at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in the Office of Enforcement, which is kind of like the only badass office in a regulatory agency, because we go after bad people who are committing fraud and manipulation in the markets, and we use forensic economics essentially to find out who the bad guys are. And I was in charge of being the liaison for Southwest Power Pool, which is who runs the grid essentially from the Dakotas down to the Texas Panhandle, adjacent to MISO, which is what Minnesota is in. Did that for several years, and then an administration change happened, and I'll just put it at that. So I moved up to Vermont after a couple of years of the of enduring a different administration. And I worked in what I thought was going to be more of an electric vehicle focused position, but it wasn't. So about 6 months in, when the job I was hired to do kind of changed into a job that I was not hired to do, I started immediately looking for opportunities to get back into energy, and that's when COVID hit. And so I stayed in that other job for a little bit, endured, and then much to because of COVID, the team that I worked with at Southwest Power Pool as while I was at FERC was hiring a market monitor. And so I sent my resume in and I said, look, I've done this exact job, hire me fully remote. And so I am the only fully remote employee now at Southwest Power Pool. It is pretty much my dream job. I don't go after bad guys anymore, although I do help every once in a while with that. My primary area at Southwest Power Pool is market analytics team. So I look at a lot of new things coming into the market, demand response being one, and behind the meter resources. Those are the two hot topics of how to get those into the wholesale market, like aggregated solar, like the solar on a rooftop versus, like a dairy farm solar operation. How can aggregators offer those into the market? I'm also starting to become the wind expert because that's kind of what I was at FERC, because Southwest Power Pool has the majority of the nation's wind power, very, very windy corridor, and it causes a lot of interesting issues, including negative prices and a lot of variable energy on the system. But Southwest Power Pool is really good at forecasting wind and balancing it on the grid. I think our penetration record for a single hour is over 84% of load being met by just renewables and just by wind. Pretty awesome. So if all those haters say wind is not, a reliable source of power, well, we've figured out how to make it work. It is very possible. But we're also, so kind of trying to figure out how to also respond to climate induced weather events, like, what was it, Uri? I think that was the name, last February, when the power went out in a lot of places. A lot of my job right now is figuring out how to fix our markets and our power plants so that people don't lose power, and so that we are climate resilient. Yeah. So that's where I'm currently at, and I absolutely love it.
Okay. So let's see. So my junior year of Morris, at Morris, I applied for the Harry S. Truman Scholarship Program. And I had just like incredible support from the Morris community, from Mary Nell, when she was, Mary Nell, and formerly Paula Lachlan, and just a number of folks really kind of supported me through that process. And that was kind of like a pivotal moment. At that time, I was heavily interested in energy policy. And I thought, I would try to get into the energy policy sector somehow, and try to get involved in renewable policy and different kind of the intersection of renewables and energy policy in Minnesota. But I really felt that I lacked the kind of technical expertise and understanding of the power sector to really kind of be in that space and be effective, I suppose. So I really wanted to study kind of proper engineering, I guess, energy systems engineering, and get a really more like much stronger kind of technical background, I suppose. While Morris definitely had really good math and stats teachers and good economics professors and whatnot, not really like an engineering school, right? So I applied for the Harry S. Truman Scholarship and got that, and that kind of was like a pivotal moment that allowed me to then go to Denmark and pursue a master's in energy systems engineering at the Technical University of Denmark. So that's located, it's just north of Copenhagen, in this beautiful little town called Lyngby. And yeah, I got to go live in Denmark for a couple years and had a great time riding my bicycle around and just living in this very different society with incredible wind penetration in the power sector and integration, most importantly, of transportation and heating in their power sector. So you have this very integrated system and really a very rich kind of planning tradition in Denmark around energy policy. So I did that and I came back to Minnesota a little unsure of kind of exactly where I would land. I applied for jobs here and there. I think I applied for a job at Connexus. Just kind of, I was anxious to get a job and just kind of apply myself and get to work. I ended up getting a job at the state of Minnesota at the Office of Enterprise Sustainability. This was a office that was created under the Data Administration originally, and I think under the leadership of Tina Smith when she was Lieutenant Governor. And it was just this kind of hub and spoke model where you have a central sustainability office working with a steering team of commissioners, and then like a subset, I suppose, of all the state agencies. But really looking to quantify the greenhouse gas emissions, the energy, water, solid waste, all of these different kind of components of state operation, to quantify it and then to track progress and try to meet these targets, these different like reduction targets for energy and greenhouse gas emissions, et cetera. So I was the kind of research analyst, program analyst in that position, and needed to just quantify a ton of things and build up this whole kind of reporting and analysis environment to begin to get a grasp, right, on what are the states, what are their operations like, how much fuel do we consume plowing the state freeways and such like that. And that was really, it was really an excellent introduction, I think, into the kind of environmental energy nexus here in Minnesota. In that position and with the state, you really are meeting with both policymakers, sometimes representatives, but given that it was an executive office, most often with state agencies, I suppose, in the government. But also like with nonprofits and utilities, engineering firms, solar development companies, contracting. So it was really this great kind of introduction. Sorry, I think that was 5 minutes. It was a great introduction into the kind of energy and sustainability area here in Minnesota. And that really kind of empowered me then to make the next step. I've been wanting to do a more kind of technically applied, a more data-driven, a more kind of directly involved work in the power sector. And I've been thinking a lot about trying to get into the co-op field as well, which I had a lot of interest in from prior experiences. And then it just so happened there was a job opening here at Dakota for a principal data analyst position. So I excitedly applied and sought feedback, sought guidance from folks like here on the panel, Yusef and former professors, and yeah, here I am. So, and then just quickly like what I do today. So, as a principal data analyst, my core function is just to work with all of our data, and so the primary project since I started has been the deployment of AMI meters within our service territory. These are meters with two-way control and just like the collection of that data, the management of it, the analysis. There's a lot of different projects, I suppose, but if we have time, happy to talk about some of the projects that I'm working on with EVs and load control. Definitely a lot of I think similar projects that I could speak towards that Maria and Yusef are working on. So yeah.
Awesome. So this is kind of like a broad question, but like, what do you all see yourself doing next? Do you want to like keep going in the same job you're in, or do you want to like, do you have like a big goal that like you're kind of running towards, or are you just kind of taking it as it comes?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's like shaking the magic 8 ball kind of question. You know, I kind of always go back to some advice that my dad gave me, which is, you know, the world or the universe or however you want to phrase it, you know, will invite you places, right? You know, you get an invitation to work on a project or do some consulting, or somebody that you know in the industry will call you up and say, hey, I got something that you might be interested in. Just listen, check it out. So, you know, I don't really have any firm plans. Most of my career has really been sort of focused in, you know, strategy and implementation and kind of leadership type roles. So I always have an eye for, you know, ways where I can make an impact, you know, whether it be in the neighborhood that I work in or the industry that I've been in for almost 20 years. So I guess I don't really have a super composed answer for that. I'm always open to, you know, whatever possibilities might come next. But I also try to be mindful of, you know, I'm excited to be where I am, and I should be grateful for where I am, and, you know, make the best of what you're doing. But, you know, doors are never closed for me, at least. So Troy liked that one. Yeah, I got a thumbs up. Thanks, Troy.
So I used to always be focused on the what next, and the best thing I ever did in life was stop. Because A, you can't plan it, and you'll go mad trying to plan it. I spent most of my 20s racked with anxiety trying to plan it, and you know, recessions happen, bad career choices happen. You know, a good boss leaves, and all of a sudden your job isn't the same. So I I am very happy now in my job. I have a great boss. I have kind of a job that I even wanted while I was working at FERC and was happy in my FERC job. Um, so yeah, I'm not thinking about what is next so much. I really would like to spend the time to truly become an expert in just what I'm doing. I make a salary that's comfortable. I do work that's meaningful. So it's like I'm not going to chase the next promotion or the next big shiny object. I'm pretty happy. What that's allowed me to do too, since I'm not focused on that, is was recently appointed to our town's energy committee, which is responsible for helping us make sure we make our climate and energy plan goals, and also make sure that our town is in alignment with Vermont's overall climate goals. I've been focusing on specifically baselining, like figuring out how to measure our progress because I'm a data scientist, but also EVs, how we get more people to buy them. There are already quite a few here in Vermont. They're very popular. We have one as well. And so how do we get more people in them and or at least getting more electric, even if it's like a plug-in, you know, hybrid or a hybrid. And then also in my personal life, you know, we bought a house 2 years ago and we've been trying to, or I should say, I've been trying to turn it into a little net zero fantasy home. It's a little cape and we put solar on it. We did weatherization projects. We've got an electric car and a charger. And I'm a big believer after doing, you know, my dissertation work on a lot of, you know, local climate policy that some of the most effective policy is actually just neighbor Joe did it and people trust neighbor Joe. So maybe they'll trust neighbor Maria. And you know what? I've already gotten one of my neighbors to go solar. So, you know, it only takes, it's, you know, career is only a small part of what you can do in sustainability. And that's what's cool about sustainability is it doesn't have to be your, you know, your job. I mean, it's great if it is. It's amazing to have it as your job, but there are so many ways you can do it as a volunteer position in your community. And, you know, even in your own life, how can you, you know, make your own existence more sustainable? So that's what I'm focused on next, more is more of my private life rather than my professional life.
So I think for me, yeah, I mean, I think I somewhat similar, like I'm kind of focused on finding more community here in the area in which I recently moved. We bought a house, a little bit of land, I suppose, right outside of Hastings, kind of north of Vermilion area in Minnesota, Dakota County. And I, if you would have asked me like 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I was a student at Morris, if I would be excited to live in Dakota County and like riding my bike around the country out here and just kind of, working in the power sector and in the co-op and stuff, I don't know what I would have said. But honestly, I'm pretty happy. I'm also pretty lucky too, because like, just given, the time at which I graduated from Morris, we did not have a recession. This didn't have, there really wasn't, job market was pretty good, and it only got better. But that said, like, I'm pretty happy where I am, and there's really no shortage of work to be done. The data science, data analytics sphere in general is a really exciting space to be in. There are so many like important problems to be addressed and solved. And data is, people say like cliche things like data is the new oil and stuff like that. To some extent, the cliche is true. I mean, there is so much data to analyze, and so many different business problems and load shaving problems, EV integration, and distributed energy resources issues to work with. But there's so many possibilities, and so it's been really fun. Like this was a new position at Dakota Electric, so there was definitely a lot of kind of reporting and analysis needs to be done as soon as I arrived. But there's also so much room to grow. We've been like I said, we've been installing these advanced metering project, the AGI project we call it. We've been putting in new load control receivers with multiple relays and different programs. So there are just so many different avenues in which you can apply data and analysis to these energy issues. Yeah, I still feel like, they say like it takes about a year at least to finally be like effective and be in stride within a job. With all the data systems that I've been working with, it's like, yeah, a year I've got some familiarity. I know people now in the company. I did start during COVID, so that was a little, I started fully remote, so it was a little weird. Like I didn't necessarily meet everyone in person for a really long time. But yeah, there's a blossoming kind of budding program here to develop and further continue. And I think yeah, a lot of good sharing too with other co-ops and within GRE. And so it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, like I'm pretty happy here in Dakota County. So yeah.
All right, thank you, everybody. At this time, if we will open it up to any other questions that anyone may have for our guests from the audience, or if anyone else has anything, or feel free to ask.
Gabby, I have a question, which is if maybe we could do one more round on if our panelists had any advice they would give to themselves back when they were a college student that would be a little bit helpful. It might be because our students are asking all these questions. Do you have some advice you might give college students today who are interested in doing sustainability work, or just generally?
Well, if I'm going first, I would say two things. The first one is give yourself some grace. All three of us sort of answered the last question in the sense of like, we're happy where we're at. We're not aspiring to do more, which means that we're all pretty fortunate. But you'll make moves in your career that are good, bad, or ugly, and just take stock of them as you go along, and just take it slow and forgive yourself if you're not picking something up. Like Jordan just said that he spent the last year kind of getting comfortable with his job. I've worked at an executive level positions at smaller utilities at least. And, the truth is, like in one of those types of positions, I've seen it take 18 months for people to really feel comfortable and good in their job, especially if it's something new. And so, a good leader, a good supervisor will know that, and they'll help coach you along the way. But, as you're starting your career, just be patient with yourself. It's good to put in the time, but don't don't overdo it either, right? Just be cognizant of that. And in terms of wanting to work in sustainability, there are so many different avenues and angles that have an impact on the way that we use things on this planet, whether it's energy or consumable goods or durable goods, et cetera. There's a lot of opportunity. So again, kind of in that sort of vein of, give yourself some grace, go out and learn and figure it out, try out a few different things. When I look at resumes, nowadays, if somebody, moves jobs every other year, the first thing that I think of is they're just doing some learning. That's great. That'll be a question that I want to ask that person is, tell me about all this learning that you've been doing with all these positions. It's okay. Go out and do the learning. There's a lot of different opportunities. There's no end.
Yeah, being nice to yourself is really important because there's so often not a straight path to where you want to go. And you will make mistakes unless you're super lucky. And, like I said, jobs will change, the economy will change, and your interests will probably change. Don't set yourself on a specific path. Like, don't say, oh, I wanted to do this, I'm going to get to this. Kind of let it happen. Have a goal in mind, but realize that goal, the outcome, or how to achieve that goal may look different than you expected. I never thought that working on a biomass gasification plant in Orest would lead me to being like a market analyst for a company in Little Rock, Arkansas. Like, never. But I'm extremely happy. And I would say more practical advice, look for internships in DC with government, like places that have, a lot of breadth of reach, or a lot of what am I trying to say? Like a wide range of things that they look at, right? Like if the Department of Energy has tons and tons of energy fellowships, and FERC is a paying internship if you ever want to work where I worked. And some of the utilities have great internships. There are national labs that have internships and early on careers. Some of these have very, you can get a very diverse amount of experience in one position. And so I would highly recommend, looking at, I personally really highly recommend government positions just because you get a very interesting perspective, because it's often, some of the most challenging work because it's often where the market hasn't yet figured out how to do something. And so we often don't see government as cutting edge, but it often is in a lot of ways because we're figuring out problems that the public sector has the private sector has no interest in yet because there's not dollar signs attached to it. So I would say look at interests or internships and really focus on government ones if you can get one. DC is awesome because you get lots of connections out there, but it's not just DC. There's plenty of opportunities in other states too. But would highly recommend.
Before you go, Jordan, I'm going to do a take back. One thing that I forgot to mention, and Maria's comment made me think of it, but like the connections, networking, go meet people, go out and meet people. Seriously, like everything that I've done in my career is because I met somebody or knew somebody or talked to them or was on a panel or, gave a presentation or whatever. Just go out there and, even if you're an introvert and don't like to socialize, go meet people and make those connections and be genuine about it while you're at it. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jordan, I interrupted
No,
you.
you're totally right because people love to talk about themselves and their careers. Just like we are right now. And we like college students because you're new, we want to help you. I mean, once you're 30, you're less interesting. You're like, well, why are you just doing like take advantage of the fact that people like to help college students, like to help recent grads, and love to talk about themselves. If nothing else, do informational interviews to hear about their career paths because they'll love to talk about themselves, and then you also get a new connection and probably a lot more through them too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, critical to meet people. especially like in the power sector too, because there's definitely a changing of the guard right now. There's a lot of job openings. There's a lot of people, from COVID times into now retiring, and it is really good to try to meet those kind of experienced players in the field and try to get their perspective and make those connections. Especially like I said, like as there's so much kind of churn and turnover and new folks entering the field. Yeah, my piece of advice would be, just really hit up like the ACE office at Morris, like hit up the different programs. Fulbright, Morris is seemingly like doing really well at producing Fulbright scholars. It's really amazing, just like the quantity and the projects that these students are taking on. That's awesome. Like that could be a really great enriching experience for your career. My time in Denmark, like maybe I rushed into my specific program without knowing exactly, like I didn't know exactly where I would be going. I thought I'd be doing more policy stuff. It turned out I really leaned into the data analytics and the science, data science aspects of my study for my further interests. But even still, like I definitely pushed. I think I probably stressed myself out a little too much in that whole experience. I was very stressed for a lot of grad school. Just trying to like do all of these different things in this optimization thesis project on the Danish district heating sector and incorporating solar into it. And I pushed, I probably stressed out too much, and I should have just been, a bit easier on myself and just kind of taken some time off and, tramped around Norway a bit or something like that. I should have probably done more of that. But in the end, it was a really good experience. So, I take it for what it was. Let's see, any other main advice? If you're kind of earlier in your undergraduate experience, look into different programs or different networks in the broader university system. So I think there's like there is like a energy professionals network, I think, with UMN, and there's like a young energy professionals network somehow in Minnesota. There are a few different like Facebook groups and just like broader U of M groups that are worth looking into. Let's see. Yeah. I don't know if I have any other immediate advice. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, I guess. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we are just about finished here. I do want to just from me and everybody in the Office of Sustainability, I want to thank our alumni that have come to speak today. It really is such a great opportunity for current students to make these connections and to learn about the different paths that you can take after graduation, because especially for a lot of people who are graduating right now who have been in school during the pandemic, it's been difficult. I was a freshman and then I had like half of my sophomore year, and now I'm graduating in like 4 weeks. So I don't know what happened. But a lot of people right now are kind of also in that situation. So having these opportunities are really helpful. And yeah. And then Gabby, if you wanted to say the final word, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, so just thank you everyone for being here tonight and giving us your perspective on energy fields and being a Morris alumni. And I just want to reiterate what Griffin said. We found this very helpful as soon to be graduates of Morris. So congratulations with the great work that you're doing, and keep doing what you're doing. And I hope everyone has a great week. And thank you for coming to our alumni and sustainability discussion.
And don't be strangers. We have emails.